here is a potential new product idea, depending on how this video is perceived. I was at a bar a couple months back, and I saw they had one of those 3D laser cut deer heads mounted on their wall. And this is something that I've seen before, but usually they're made out of like thin plywood or cardboard. But I thought this one was really cool because they made it out of old beer boxes, which was a really cool like aesthetic match for the bar. But anyways, it just had me thinking about other materials that you could make these deer heads out of, and how I could come up with something that was a little less man-cavey and more just like home decor looking and high-end. So my first thought was scrapbook papers, because I see those all the time at Hobby Lobby. You can get a ton of different designs, and you can buy like a whole book of those scrapbook paper designs for pretty cheap. So I bought a bunch of scrapbook papers, and immediately I found the problem with those is that they are way too thin to make any sort of form with. They just bend way too easily. So I had to paste a bunch of those scrapbook papers together with chipboard in between them to make them a bit stiffer so I could actually make stuff with them. And these papers had a bit of a bad habit of wanting to curl up as the glue dried. So I found this slab of marble that I've been saving for really no apparent reason until right now. And this helped to keep the pages flat while the glue dried. And then once the glue did dry, I made a bunch of different animal heads with these scrapbook papers. And I didn't like any of them. I don't really know how to explain it. I just thought they looked too flat, and it just looked very cheesy and cheap and fake. So I ditched the scrapbook papers, and I decided to instead engrave the whole design into the deer head parts, as well as cut the parts out, all with my laser cutter. So I bought some poster board, and I'm spraying down that poster board with coffee just to stain it a little bit darker, more yellow and blotchy to make the paper look older. And then I'm going to engrave all of the parts and cut out all the deer parts to look like newsprint. And this was nice because the engraving gave some more texture to the pieces, which for whatever reason seemed to make the whole thing look a lot less cheap and cheesy to me than the scrapbook papers did. But maybe I'm just crazy. Let me know which ones you liked better. I also sanded all the edges of each piece. And this is a very nitpicky thing to do. I know that. But I really don't like when people leave the burnt edges on laser cut stuff. To me, it always just looks very unfinished and cheap, even though it doesn't really matter. It's just kind of a preference thing. And then I folded up each piece of the deer head a bit to add crease marks, again, just to add to that vintage look before I put all the pieces together. And that is it. I just thought this looked really cool. I am selling these on my Etsy if that's something you're interested in, or maybe you'll just take inspiration from this and you can make your own.